Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hi there. We have our Fauntleroy group here. It looks like we have everyone for now. We might get a few people coming in, straggling in. Thank you for all being here tonight. My name is Laura, as I mentioned in the big group, and I am new to this project. I've been working with Washington State Ferries for a little over a decade on some of their other terminal projects and the long range plans. I'm really excited to get to know all of you and hear about what's important to you. This is really more of a conversation, so really an opportunity to hear from all of you. We wanted to break you up by community because we know that there are such different needs and priorities for each of the Triangle Route communities. And we have heard a lot over the years by email and the larger group conversations and planning conversations, but we haven't had a chance to just gather with CAG members who are representing the Fauntleroy community. So now that you have reviewed the purpose and need statement, we want to have more time to hear about how your community's values fit in and how we can make sure that they are considered as we move into the screening or evaluation process. I won't be able to answer all your questions here. I can bring in project team members if we need to, but really this is just a chance for you all to connect with one another. And then we'll have some time once we get back into the large group to report out and to hear from the other groups as well. So before we get started, I think we all know each other, but just wanted to go around and do just some quick introductions before we jump in. Do you want to kick us off, Judy?
Okay. I'm Judy Pickens. I am officially representing Fauntleroy Creek in this process. I live across the street from the terminal.
Thanks, Judy. Margaret?
Hi, I'm a 40-year resident here. I live 4 houses from the ferry dock and was integral in starting Cove Park. So I feel like that's a very important part of what I'm doing here. And I would like to say that I really don't know other people in this group. And I asked Hadley if she could arrange a situation where we could exchange emails because I feel like people have different opinions and different biases and different ways that they prioritize things. And I wouldn't even limit that to the Fauntleroy group. People could opt in if they wanted to put their emails in a way that others could ask more of what they were talking about or what's interesting to them.
Thanks for bringing that up again.
That's my state. That's one of my breakout room things is that we don't really know each other, and we know some things about each other that are very important, and it would be helpful if we had some other ways to communicate.
That's great. We'll bring that back into the big group conversation, and I can also follow up with Hadley about that. John.
I do not live in the vicinity of the ferry terminal. I ride the ferry. One of my kids goes to school on Vashon, so I'm more of a user than a neighbor. And live up by Alaska Junction.
Great, thank you. Nolani?
I'm Noelani. I am also not right near the ferry, but I'm more up towards Arbor Heights, Westwood Village. We use the ferry to go and see family quite a bit who live over on the other side of the water, and go into Vashon quite a bit to visit. So yeah, just kind of local user.
Great, thank you. Frank?
I am a 10-year resident of the Fauntleroy area. I live 2 doors north of the ferry dock, so I am very close to it. I don't ride it very often, so more of a buy watcher than a user. But I'm also the FAC member for this dock.
Thanks, Frank. Victoria?
I'm a 3rd generation West Seattle in the Fauntleroy neighborhood, and I just live a couple blocks away. And I am also on the board of the West Seattle Transportation Coalition, same as John. And so I think we both wear two hats when it comes to that.
Thank you. Sounds like lots of perspectives represented even within this smaller group, which is great. So we do want to report out once we go back to the bigger group. Would one of you be willing to take some notes during our conversation?
Sure, I can.
Thank you, Frank. Would you feel comfortable sharing the report out as well?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great. Any questions before we dig in? Okay, so I wanted to just start off by just sharing, kind of grounding some of the comments that we have received over the years. We've been, since we started talking about this project and also in the past several years. So these are just some of the types of things that we've heard that are important to the Fauntleroy neighborhood related to this project, including concerns about increased traffic and congestion near the dock, loading vehicles efficiently to decrease wait times and traffic backups, concerns about the visual impact of a larger terminal or changes to the character of the neighborhood, the effects on the Fauntleroy Creek and the environment more broadly, considering a full range of alternatives, including moving the terminal to other locations or using tools like Good to Go to manage demand. Do these issues, do you think that these are still key issues for your community? What would you add or change?
I want to touch a little bit on what John mentioned earlier. And that is, I think it's, most of us know that the city decided that the Fauntleroy dock really has a limited capacity for the vehicles coming through the neighborhood. It just, and they set that and they said it couldn't be or should not be increased. And so in this process of replacing the dock or moving it, which I don't really see happening, but in going through this process, what is the commitment to redirecting traffic outside of Fauntleroy as much as we can? The walk-ons are great for Southworth and Vashon. And is there a real focus as well to mitigate some of the increased traffic by doing that?
Thank you, Victoria. Other thoughts on key issues?
Well, I've put this in the log, but that we, we have 80% of the traffic is single occupancy vehicles, and that's the highest in the entire system. And there have been multiple suggestions over the years to how to change that. I just noticed that when Hadley put up the, here's how we develop screening for Mukilteo, they continue to have the 1.5 times the vessel capacity for car holding. And that's, I think that's something that should be challenged. Certainly Coleman Dock was not built that way. And if we have such a constricted space, if we could use it for multimodal transport as opposed to more single occupancy vehicles, or encouraging single occupancy vehicles by giving them parking spaces. So, so that, I don't know if that's what you're looking for here. And then the other thing that we've had multiple people say is, it seems like you, for years now, have been looking at the plans and figuring out things. And then we get a statement such as, we're going to change the intersection. And can you all agree that changing the intersection is a good idea? And there again, I would have a lot of criteria or screening because we have, the only dock in a residential neighborhood. And we have a street that has been reduced from 4 lanes to 2. And we have bus loading that has islands that have been pushed out into it. So we have a lot of issues with trying to imagine what do you mean by changing the intersection? And what will be the screening criteria to say, well, that's a good thing to do, in what way, shape, or form?
Mhm.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Absolutely. Seeing a lot of head nodding.
I think one of the thoughts that I have are that to some extent the criteria work at cross purposes, because if, you know, the inability to stage cars on the dock means you have a lot of cars that are idling in the neighborhood, and the creeping cars, and which creates a big safety hazard and more pollution in the neighborhood. But by the same token, if you know, making the process more efficient to some extent, you run the risk of you know, sort of falling victim to the you know, induced demand, where if it's you make it more easy, the more people are liable to take single occupancy vehicles across. And you know, I think that that's absolutely you know, the low hanging fruit to discourage or to encourage alternatives. But it's you know, I guess the challenge is, you know, how can the terminal itself encourage that behavior? And you know, I guess I don't, you know, not being a neighbor, I guess I don't have the same antipathy for the terminal that folks, you know, that are close to it have. But you know, I just think that's something that, you know, a conundrum that we got to resolve: the efficiency versus the not just driving more demand.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Or not driving, you know, not driving more people to use it in unsustainable ways.
Thank you, John. Judy, you have your hand up.
It seems to me the dichotomy that we all have to wrestle with, and especially those of you who work for the system, was very evident in comments. I mean, we have this one, obviously a commuter, who's advocating for gates to shut off side streets so that the people trying to zoom into town can do so without all of that bother with other traffic. I mean, that is just bizarre, but clearly someone thought that was a good suggestion. Well, and on the other hand, many of us would like to see the whole thing go away entirely. So it is interesting where we draw the lines, so that the project is really about X, Y, and Z, and not any number of other things. Obviously, the project title, which must have been what was used in funding from the legislature, is about replacing the trestle and transfer span. That's it. But the needs statement goes beyond that to include efficiency. That makes a lot of sense. I just would like to hear from the system exactly what are you putting in this basket? What are, that tells us what our possibilities are. And also, you know, what the project will not be considering. And I'm not sure that's been really clear, especially when you look at the comments coming in from the members of the public.
Yeah, we really haven't gotten to that point in the process yet, but it is coming. And I know Maggie's going to talk a little bit more about the initial list of alternatives and what's coming kind of next. But I've definitely sense a lot of, you know, just identifying the many issues and competing priorities, and in some ways that there are, and really the set of challenges. and wanting to know what are some potential solutions that
And-
ferries
and
could
maybe-
consider.
Maybe the potential for actually changing the name of the project. Because it does indicate one thing, and in fact, our work so far has indicated something considerably more broad than that.
It's like, it feels, it's like a kitchen remodel, right? It's like, oh, hey, I got these
Yeah, yeah.
cabinets, these cabinets I need to replace, I got some water damage or something, and while I'm at it, I'll, bring some new appliances in, and, I might as well, I think that's I get the sense of that as well, and I imagine that if one was a neighbor of the terminal, one might be concerned that this is, potentially sort of an elephant getting its nose under the tent kind of scenario, and
Camel, it would be a camel, John.
okay,
But
camel,
go ahead.
camel, yes, but sort of that same a concern with the sort of amorphous and loosely defined scope. And I guess I appreciate the fact that, by starting out that, sort of everything's on the table, it encourages the maximum conversation, but I think it also, has, as I was kind of the point of my initial comment at the beginning, it runs the risk of being sort of a scatter, leading to a very scattershot approach initially, where you have, sort of ideas like movable gates that block off Fauntleroy to everybody except the folks that are, trying to minimize their commute time, and it's like, well, that's an interesting and if that's the problem you're trying to solve, an innovative solution. I mean, it just isn't something that's going to happen.
Any priorities from folks we haven't heard from yet?
Victoria had her hand up.
Victoria.
Well, I think that's a good point, because I'm not sure where the funding, how broadly you can go after additional funding if you expand the scope of the original project or the project title. So I would like to have an understanding of the finances behind this, because it's not just, yeah, we would like to add these additional pieces onto this project, which may or may not be good ideas, but is the funding even going to be there if you go outside and start adding additional components? You know what I mean? I mean, I know that we've got some funding challenges already. So, fixing the terminal and replacing it is probably covered. But once you start adding some of these additional factors on, is that going to be a scramble to even get the money to do it?
Yes, I think funding will certainly be coming up soon in the screening process as one of the really real constraints.
I guess I would add in, just the, in the aspect of the win-win-win situation. I think that, I agree 100% with the comments made that the title is very descriptive, yet it seems like the majority of these of the purpose and need modifications has gone to other things. And again, the concern about financing, I think, is very real. But I think also that, the win-win-win piece, I think that we do need to look at this as how can we improve the processing. When I bought this house, I knew that the ferry dock was here. I knew that the ferry line was there. I don't expect it to go away. I don't anticipate it to go away. We just need to be, this is our neighborhood. I think that the people that are traveling through it need to be respectful of it. And I think that, but yet within the confines, that it's still going to be there. They're still going to come here. They're still going to go through here. And that's fine. We just need to make it work better. And I think there are ways, and Marty's been great with some ideas of how to make it better. There's been some improvement, I think some radical improvement made right before COVID that made a significant difference. And I think should be expanded all the time. And that's the dual destination boats, no single destination boats. I think that, and Nolani, to you as ferry riders, I mean, do you see that as a positive? I mean, I don't ride the ferry, so I don't know, but I mean,
I mean, to be honest, stopping at Vashon to get to Southwest doesn't bother me at all. I don't know. I can understand during high commute times why people would want that, but it's not really that big of a deal to me, I guess, to have to stop. I think one of the factors that kind of sticks with me is I want to make sure that this is one of the things I actually brought up, and I know this breakout room is going to close shortly, but was that while we're talking about one area, West Seattle serves many communities. And I don't know that we're represented very well throughout High Point, White Center, things like that. So I want to make sure that this ferry, whatever happens, is equitable for everybody. And I'm not sure that we're there yet, but that's my goal in this.
Yeah. Good point.
I would say my main thing is processing. If we can improve the processing, we can really help everybody.
It feels like a nice place to end. And